Hey everyone, this podcast is part of Story Mode, the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. You can support us and gain access to other great exclusive podcasts at patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Oh yeah, it's us.
Oh man, you know that's how we always introduce episodes.
Yeah, great time.
Man,
Hi everybody.
Hello everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman,
and we just watched Freaks. Not the
Freaks.
Sure.
Yeah, why not?
By definition, any freaks who are running loose are illegal.
Abnormals are dangerous, and we can't let them live free.
Chloe! Hey! Someone could have seen you.
Sorry, Dad.
We have to stay hidden. They look just like us, right?
Where are you going?
I don't want to hide anymore.
You gotta be strong like your mom was.
You knew my mom?
This isn't the 1932 film.
No, this
Freaks.
is not the horror film, the offensive horror film from
a very interesting
a century
film if you
ago.
haven't seen it though. No, this is the 2018 film that I'm not sure people have watched.
No, it was an indie film that made a little bit of noise for reasons that I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah, it's got Emil Hirsch, Bruce Dern.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, if you watch the trailer, it's a real, I don't know what the fuck this is. This is, by the way, Thursday, so this was brought to you by Joshua Graves, who gave us a whole list to choose from.
Yeah.
And pointed out that, since we did Paul Blart, Observe and Report would be a good idea. And we were like, cool, let's watch Freaks.
It would be a good idea. But anyway, here's Freaks.
I mean, honestly, I hadn't seen this movie. Had you?
No. It came up, I think, didn't we call this out as a movie that deserved more hype at one point?
And I hadn't gotten around to it. So I was like, well, shit, it's on this list.
Yeah.
Yeah, the trailer, it was one of those trailers where you're like, I don't know what the fuck I'm seeing.
Yeah.
You know, I remember a part in the trailer where the little girl is standing there and there's this red cloud forming in front of her, and I was like, what is that? And it turns out, spoilers, it's the blood of Bruce Dern. I would have never known that. I would have never known that if I had watched this
It's the blood of
movie.
invisible Bruce Dern.
Yeah. This is it's X-Men.
Yeah.
What did you think of this movie, Tom?
I liked it.
I did too.
I thought it was cool how it was really cool how they were able to do a story that's really on a massive scale, but have it take place entirely within this one house. That
was what was cool, is it felt very big.
Yeah, it's huge. It's a huge story. I mean, it's really just about this family, but the implications and the world, I really liked the world building too, because it does it in a way that's not, there's only one real exposition dump, but it's done pretty well when she puts on the headphones and is listening to the news report. The rest we just sort of pick up by the characters interacting with the world. We figure out what the universe is, which is this world where there are X-Men, but it's like X-Men if the evil senator from the first movie got his way and they all had to be rounded up and executed or put into camps.
It's like the real gritty version.
Yeah.
Whenever X-Men, I haven't seen
Senator
the New Mutants,
Kelly,
but
that's right, Senator Kelly.
Yeah. The New Mutants promises to be the gritty version. I haven't seen it, but watching this, I'm like, no, this is how you do the gritty version. This is way scarier. They do it where it's it's literally if you're one of these people who are called freaks, who just the public calls freaks, you're shot on sight.
Pretty
And
much, they
they're
just
so
kill you on sight.
paranoid.
Yeah.
The cops are so paranoid that they'll shoot anybody who they think might be one of these people.
Yeah.
There's a bit, because one of the things that happens is when they use their powers, their eyes bleed. And so anybody who is just seen with an bleeding eye, they'll gun down because they're so scared, because these people have such great powers that they will drop them immediately, no question.
Yeah.
They say like, "Oh, you can come peacefully," but like the cops are so clearly afraid
Yeah.
that there's no way you could ever
No.
reason with a cop in this world if you're one of these people.
Yeah, and they just habitually use drone strikes to blow up entire houses
Yeah.
where freaks are.
Which again all comes out in the movie. Like, this is a great lesson in exposition.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah. This reminded me of, you still haven't watched Coherence, but that's another movie that takes place largely in a house that feels gigantic. I love that. I love it when a movie is able to feel huge and kind of epic and never really actually show you much.
Yeah, and they do it in such a clever way, which is that it's basically the stories about Emil Hirsch and his daughter, who's about 7, and he doesn't let her go outside, and it's not clear why. And then we gradually learn that he's got some kind of power, and she has some kind of power that we eventually learn is she can get inside people's minds and see what they're seeing, and then ultimately she can make people do things. So the way they tell this story is she can go anywhere in the world, essentially, as long as she's in somebody's head. So we're able to see people who are, like her mom, we come to find out is imprisoned in this mountain that's supposed to be a safe haven for abnormals, is what is like the nice term for them, but it's it's really just a gulag. So we get to see all that stuff going on with her mom just in her bedroom. Like, her mom will appear in shackles in her bedroom because she's just able to essentially astral project herself.
Right, and since there's not a like, she doesn't have a big excuse me, a large radius on it, you don't see the whole place, you just see the person she's focused on.
Yeah.
Which is how they get away with it. And this power is summed up, like, you can do this power by just putting the actor in the room.
Yep.
Like, they just have set pieces that can be moved in that look like this, because it's a smooth transition. There's nothing like CGI heavy about it. So it's a real simple way of doing this.
Yeah, there's and they kind of all have powers that are like, except for the mom. The mom's power is pretty huge.
Yes.
And then towards the end, they do some wild stuff with Emil Hirsch's power that requires some special effects. But
there's definitely effects in this, but like compared to other movies, it's very...
They gave them special powers that are easy to do with a small budget. Like, Emil Hirsch can stop time.
Right.
And unless you're seeing things like in motion being slowed down, you can really just do it by having people stand still. And then Bruce Dern's power is he can turn invisible, and that's, real easy.
Right. They have CG for like him slowly disappearing.
Yeah.
They have CGI for like pulses that come out of Emil Hirsch.
Yeah.
There's stuff like you see a missile slow down, an explosion slow. But these are all things that can be done on, like, this is shit that you see in commercials.
Yeah.
It's very low budget for nowadays. I don't know what the budget is. I looked it up. I couldn't find it. But you can tell
it can't have been much.
Yeah, it's kind of wild how indie films, like, it's just how CGI goes, where it's just like, shit that we're seeing in this indie film would blow us away and cost $60 million in the 90s.
In like 1998, this would have been fucking wild when everybody's doing their Tarantino hitmen movies, and then this thing pops out where it's like fucking X-Men in indie movie form.
Yeah, but more movies need to do this. What really the strength of this film is it simply pick the right person to tell the story from. Mm-hmm. Because, like, we do this thing where, superhero universes are so big, and we like to, like, be on the outside looking in. Mm-hmm. Where it's very rarely like a very human story. very personal story. So like it's like watching. God, I'm trying to think of a good way to put it.
This would be...
It's like watching a movie from the point of view of someone Loki has bewitched without the context of what Loki is. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
Like someone who's just like working a job and then this man walks in and suddenly they just don't know where they are or who they are. And like just doing it from the point of view of someone who doesn't have control or power or perspective. So it's all from the point of view of this little girl who has grown up in this house, and what we learn is that Emil Hirsch, who can stop time, has been regularly stopping time. So she has aged 7 years in a couple of months, which is a great idea.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and that's again, everything is gradually revealed. We're never really given an exposition dump. It just happens very naturally as this little girl. She's hitting a point in her life where she's questioning her dad's rules for the first time because she wants to go outside. She wants to have ice cream. Right. She wants to have a mom.
And there's this old guy running a ice cream truck outside, and you wonder, like, who is he? Is he bad man?
Right? Yeah, we can't tell
because he knows her name, and like, and you can tell he's kind of like he seems kind of sinister. He's a Bruce Dern type.
He's a Bruce Dern type.
Yeah, and she goes out there and he takes her in the ice cream truck and you're wondering like, who is this guy? And he seems to know stuff about her and he's kind of aggressive with her at first.
Right. I got the sense at first, I was like, is he because we really don't know much about the universe at this point.
Yeah.
I was like, is he like some kind of government agent that's trying to find superpowered people? And it turns out that he's her grandfather. And he wants to use her to get into the mountain gulag to free his daughter, her mother.
Right. Which from that perspective, you realize, this is like a plot of an X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
But from the point of view of a little kid who doesn't understand the world, it's incredibly distressing.
Yeah.
And that's what's really good about it, is that Bruce Dern ultimately is just a character in a superhero film. He's not that bad of a guy. He's kind of an asshole.
Right.
Emil Hirsch also like trying his best, but since we start from the little girl, they both seem so sinister.
Right, because we don't we're the little girl in the situation. It's almost like it feels a little bit like Room from the little kid's perspective, where it's like the kid. She doesn't understand why Emil Hirsch is doing these things and why he's acting the way he is. And we don't understand. So he really seems like he's out of his mind for half the movie.
Right. Yeah, because he seems like he's a decent dad, but he's really like...
He's incredibly paranoid.
He's incredibly paranoid. He comes home covered in blood at one point with a gun.
Yeah.
He's so stern to this little girl. He keeps locking her in a closet, and you think, well, that's mean. But then also he knows that she's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So he's doing it because he's scared of what she'll do to the world.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, that actually makes sense. He keeps saying stuff like, if your eyes bleed, you need to tell me. Mm-hmm. And you don't know what that means at first.
Yeah.
It just sounds like madness.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a mad world that we're being introduced to from this little girl we're basically learning about the world like a child would.
Yes, yeah.
It all seems illogical and weird, and then it all slowly makes sense. Like, when we were kids, that's how the world was. Adults were scary and weird because we didn't understand them.
Right. We would just take their word for stuff, and then you get to a point where you're nearing adolescence where you start to question it. And then when you get on the other side of that, you're like, oh, I get it now.
Right. You're like, right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you gotta. Sometimes you gotta lock a kid in the closet. Yeah, I get it. Because they have psychic power.
Yeah, it's because they have terrible psychic powers.
Yeah. The moment Bruce Dern turned invisible, I was delighted.
Oh, yeah.
Invisible Bruce Dern? Are you fucking kidding me?
I popped pretty hard for that.
Yeah.
He just turns invisible. So like, oh, shit!
Yeah, they roll it out very slowly. You think at first, like, maybe this little girl is the only one.
It kind of seems that way at first, because we can't see that Emil Hirsch is stopping time.
Right. Well, what they do, again, it's such a good way of doing this. He basically creates a bubble around the house that time stops.
Mm-hmm.
And what we see a couple shots near the beginning is she looks out the window and the birds are frozen in the air. And you're like, what the fuck does that even mean? And so it gives you these pieces in a logical way, in a way that she would also discover them. But since we're only getting those pieces from her point of view, it just looks incoherent.
Yeah, we have no idea what that means. And in point of fact, I just sort of dismissed it because I was like we were saying, it kind of seems like she might be the only one that has powers. So it was like,
right,
I just dismissed it as, well, maybe that's something she can do. Like she can just slow things down in her vision or something. I don't know.
Right. There's no way to know at first. And you get the sense that Emil Hirsch isn't just a madman, because then there'd be no movie. So like,
right, but you also
right away you're like, I think this little girl might have powers, but you don't know if he's good or bad.
Right, you don't know whether or not to trust him.
Yeah, it's very well done. He also has large chunks of money.
He does, yeah.
And so like, again, you're like, well, people who have large chunks of money don't tend to be good people.
Right, he has large chunks of money in a safe that's also full of guns.
Yeah.
Like one of the first things we see him do is clean a gun.
Right. It's one of the things that happens in my favorite show, the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
It's that as well, where Sarah Connor, when you're joining that family, the Connors, if you are an outside person, they look like absolute madness.
Yeah.
And then if they try to explain themselves, they look even worse.
Yeah.
And you sort of have to just like, the moment you learn, oh, there are killer robots. Oh, you're the sanest people in the world.
Yeah, it's because he spends.
And I love that.
Yeah, it's like the first 30 or 40 minutes before she finally gets outside and Bruce Dern takes her to the park. He's been telling her about the bad people will get killed if we go outside. He's very doomsayer about it. He's like, I'm going to get killed eventually. And then you'll be sorry that you said you wished I was dead. He makes it seem like there's like people waiting around every corner and in every bush to just kill them the second they pop outside. But you're only seeing from her perspective, where she's just seeing kids playing, going to the ice cream truck, and she gets in the ice cream truck with Bruce Dern, and everything looks incredibly normal. So for a minute, you're just like, is Emil Hirsch crazy? Or like, what's...
Right.
But of course they pass a billboard that shows somebody bleeding from the eye, which we saw Emil Hirsch do earlier, and then it says the billboard says it looks just like us. They look just like us. And when they get to the park, a cop shows up and is real aggressive about looking at their eyes. So then we start to get the sense of, oh, maybe he's not. Maybe he might. You're like, okay, maybe he has a point, but he still feels overbearing. And then the scene in the diner where it's just like, oh shit, no, okay, he's totally right. Like,
yeah,
human beings will just kill the abnormal people on sight.
Yeah, what happens in the diner is Bruce Dern has a plan to basically dress up like a priest and take his granddaughter in to talk to this woman who we see on the news, who seems like she might be more sympathetic towards abnormals.
A little. I still got the sense from that news broadcast that she was. I mean, she's still like a racist.
She's still, law enforcement.
Yeah, who wants to kill all the mutants essentially, but she just calls them abnormal instead of freak, and it's like, oh, well, I guess.
Yeah.
But it turns
she's to be more diplomatic about it.
Right.
So she seems.
But she turns out to be just as evil as anyone else.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So they go to find her, like Bruce Dern tracked down her schedule, and he's going to her to say, like, we want you to, this little girl's an abnormal. I found her on the doorstep 7 years ago of my church. We want you to take her to Maddock Mountain. And the idea is he wants to go to Maddock Mountain because that's where it turns out his daughter is the girl's mom.
Yeah.
And he wants to break her out. And so, again, the only way to get there is to be very, very, very nice as an abnormal, or you're going to just get shot. And then what happens is that woman essentially, like, calls it in. Bruce Dern and the little girl go into the kitchen, and Bruce Dern stabs a man in the eye.
Yeah, he stabs the cook.
Yep. And the cook comes out, his eye bleeding, but like clearly in need of help. And the cops just drop him.
Right.
And that's when you
see
know,
him bleeding
oh,
from
shit.
the eye. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's when also Bruce Dern turns invisible, and it's like, oh, delightful.
Yeah.
So yeah, what you learn very quickly is like there's no compromise, and we don't know. They keep talking about Dallas. Like Dallas, clearly something horrible happened in Dallas.
You see it a bit on the news when Emile Hirsch is asleep in front of the television before she puts the headphones on. And yeah, it's like Dallas 10 years since the tragedy, and it looks like completely bombed out.
Yeah, what we're basically seeing is the end of a war. We're seeing X-Men Days of Future Past.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when the Sentinels...
Right, when Peter Dinklage's Sentinels have already killed most of the X-Men.
Yeah, so there's clearly a history, and there's probably been, you know, shitty mutants too in this world, and we're seeing a world that's just at its wit's end and has decided, all right, we're just going to be Nazis against these people.
Yeah. The interesting thing, one of the interesting things about this movie is it's a little like X-Men First Class in that we're kind of seeing how Magneto became Magneto.
Right.
Because by the end of the movie, the little girl's like, no, fuck that. We're not hiding. We're going to live wherever we want. And if anybody fucks with us, I will kill them.
And that's what I was getting to is that, like, yeah, they take us on a journey from innocent little girl who has no idea what the world's like to by the end, the girl is like, I'm going to kill anybody in our path. I don't give a fuck.
Right. By the end of the movie, she has killed a dozen people.
Yes. Because it's the only choice she has.
Right.
Because she's born into this war that's in a horrible stage. In a stage where there's zero tolerance against her existence.
Yeah.
And she didn't ask to exist. And all she wants to do is be loved. And it results in one of the most heartbreaking scenes. Because Emile Hirsch's plan, unlike Bruce Dern, is he's basically slowing down time around this house so that she can get old enough to not be associated with them.
Right. He doesn't want anybody, because her mom is kind of famous as like a mutant revolutionary. So he's slowed down time so that he can raise her in secret and then let her out in the world and at a point where it wouldn't make sense that she would be his daughter. It'd be like, well, how could she possibly be your daughter? Your daughter was born 6 months ago.
And he's kind of hoping that she'll be okay. So he's telling her, like, yeah, if you bleed from your eyes, you tell me. You need to control your anger. Because he knows there's some sort of emotional trigger for her power. So he's, like, teaching her how to be calm. And he's giving her a cover story so that she can fit in. And that's what we learn that the money's for, is he's going to give it to like a neighbor, a friend.
Yeah, it's this neighbor family who he's made an arrangement where at a certain point he will turn her over to them to raise as a normal person as their daughter, and he will just give them money for the rest of I guess until she grows up.
And since he is so fucking weird to her, she hates him. You know, like she can't stand. She doesn't see the sun. Her father is a maniac, and even though we eventually realize why and understand it, it doesn't help her at all. So multiple times she almost kills her father by willing him to do stuff. Because she can also she's a pusher, by the way. She can also will people to do stuff.
Yeah, she's a pusher. She only almost kills him once.
That's true. She makes him fall asleep.
She makes him fall asleep the
and
first
so Bruce
time,
Dern is bringing this promise to her of like, you're gonna fight. So the dad wants her to sort of run away. So she's been astral projecting with the neighbor's kid and like annoying her, and it seems like a friendship. And we learn, no, she's been willing the girl to do stuff, to play with her and stuff. Because that's her ability. So they bring her, when Emile Hirsch tries to bring her to the family, the little girl recognizes her and he's like, no, that girl shows up in my dream. She's a demon.
Yeah, she shows up at night and makes me hug her and tell her I love her.
And then the family gets flustered, and then like the mother is the one who's like doesn't know if she can do it, and the girl forces the mother to pretend that she loves her for like a moment. And the girl is so happy that this woman is showing her love like a family, and then the woman is revolted by what just happened because she was forced. So like all this girl wants is a parent specifically aimed at a mother because she lost her mother and thought her mother was dead, that just loves her. She just wants to get ice cream and have like a normal life.
Right. She just wants to have a normal family.
She just wants the right to exist. And she's born in a world where she can't. And so because of that, she has to kill people. A lot of people. To get her mother back. She forces people to kill themselves. She makes a guy bash his head in the wall. And that's her arc, is basically at the end. Her mom, who is Superman.
Yes, essentially.
And her, who is fucking just a mind wizard.
She's Professor X.
And her mom is just, well, power-wise, she's can just control people's brains. So they are...
Right, no, she does not have the morality of Professor X.
So, like, her mom's just like, Emil Hirsch dies, saving her from the missile. Bruce Dern dies because he's shot. And so she just has her mother left, who goes and gets her, and her mother's like, we're going to run. And she's like, no, we're not running anymore. We can do whatever the fuck we want. This little girl, and she's right, and you're on her side.
Yeah. It's by the end, you're rooting for this child to kill people.
Right, because...
you're like, hell yeah, fuck that dude, kill him, 7-year-old girl.
Fuck these people up. They wronged you. And, like, again, you don't know what led to this. Like, we have no idea. Maybe the mutants were really terrible. But the point is that that's not her war, you know? She has no reference for that. That's what makes it really cool. I think that's part of why it's important, the Emil Hirsch, like, kind of super aging her and cutting her off from the world, because then she has no idea what world she's in.
Mm-hmm. And it's also, the point of telling it from her point of view instead of his.
Right.
They could have easily made this a movie like A Quiet Place, where it's from his point of view.
And that would have been lame, because it's just...
Yeah, it would have been very lame.
Because it's the point. It's this person has a right to live. They didn't ask for any of this. And no better way to show that than show the world be introduced to this person slowly.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it was a cool movie.
Yeah.
It's hiding there on Netflix, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much attention it got.
I heard about it a lot, and we had a poster of it at the Collider office back when that was a thing. I think it made a splash at festivals because of its ingenuity.
As an indie film, it's extremely impressive, because again, all this stuff is
the movie takes place in a cul-de-sac,
pretty much,
and then largely inside one
because
house.
Again, they imply a bigger universe. They show the the billboard, which I don't even think they had to rent a billboard. I'm pretty sure that was a digital shot.
That could be a digital shot.
They have a few people dressed as cops. They have some news footage, some shots of Dallas looking like it was blown up. Very, like, probably the most expensive set piece is the facility that the mom's in. And that honestly, like, that looked like just like a warehouse, that they dressed up to look good.
Yeah.
It's a very cheap film that manages to do a lot with it, because it's also a very big idea. From the director of Leprechaun Origins, by the way, Tom. Yeah, one of the directors.
That shouldn't be.
Yeah. One of the directors had directed Leprechaun Origins. He didn't write it, but he directed it. I don't know what that means.
Sure.
So it was two directors.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. I didn't look up anything else that they had done.
Okay, one of them is co-directing the live-action adaptation of Kim Possible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I don't know, man. I'm sure these people got noticed for this movie. I hope they did, because it is like, I don't know. It's definitely one of the more original ideas for a film. Like, there's a reason Bruce Dern got involved, because I don't know about you. I see Bruce Dern as the sign of a good movie. Is that true?
I think so.
I'm trying to think of bad movies Bruce Dern has been in. But he tends to be someone who's like in like, I don't know, good indie films.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
He was in The Burbs.
I mean, I know you're not really singing the praises of The Hateful Eight, but he's in that.
Well, that's a Tarantino film. Like, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Of course.
He's in. I'm looking him up. He's in a lot of weird shit, actually. So who can say? I don't think. I think Bruce Dern is just.
The man's had a career.
He's just a man who works, from what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, the man has had a career. Yeah. He pops up in shit.
And Emil Hirsch, not a really big fan of his who he is, but we've watched 2 movies with him recently
where he was pretty good.
I mean, you can be a good actor and be a bad person.
Yeah, you can be a good actor and choke a lady.
You sure can.
Which is what Emil Hirsch did.
Yeah.
I believe that was what happened.
These are 2 movies where he plays an unhinged man, so
yeah. So maybe that's his calling.
Emil Hirsch stopping time is a terrifying thought. As is Bruce Dern turning invisible. I don't know. I wouldn't feel good knowing that Bruce Dern could be somewhere, And
you just don't know it. Like, Bruce Dern could be in this room with me.
They make it so that he doesn't have to be naked, which was probably a good call.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's good that he can just make his clothes invisible, and doesn't have to be
nude.
Right.
Yeah, they do. By the way, the way they introduce, and the character's name is Chloe. By the way, the way they introduce her mother, you think it's like, it's a really good idea, because the first section of this movie, again, time seems to be stopping outside. Her dad appears to be a maniac, and there's also a ghost in her closet, which was a really cool way of doing this. Is that she encounters she encounters like a screaming woman in her closet.
Yeah, and we don't know what it is, and we can see that it happens a lot because she has a routine. She runs into a little tent and she draws a picture of the woman over and over again and says, "Go away, ghost." Right. So it's clear this happens a lot. So again, we don't know what it means. We're associating it with her power, but we don't know exactly how yet. We're just like, well, this is clearly part of it, but I don't know why or how.
Right. And that ghost turns out to be her mother, who is just in pain.
Yeah, and in a jail cell in the middle of a mountain somewhere.
It's such a cool idea to show someone with superpowers not understanding what those powers are.
Yeah, it just seemed. I mean, it was kind of the idea, like you mentioned it earlier. It was sort of the idea that Josh Boone had pitched for the New Mutants,
right?
Where it's like it's almost a horror movie because it's this, like, from any other perspective than the, cool comic book superhero perspective. Like, superheroes are demons.
Right, that's the thing.
Like, they're demons.
They're like, and supervillains. So, like, that's the thing is like, I don't understand why they don't do this any, like, more is that, like, your average superhero villain is the equivalent of Pennywise the Clown out of context. That's what makes Pennywise so creepy, is that there's this implied bigness to him. It's this unknown that we're not sure of. And it would be very funny if, like, at some point, some wisecracking alien comes down and just shoots him with a laser, because he's just considered, like, he's a bad guy. Because that, and that's what it is. Like, the Marvel Universe, I think about the most with this, because, out of context, a lot of these characters are horrifying or magical.
Yeah.
It's what they did with the movie Bumblebee, where they realized we really just need the one robot. That alone is a big deal.
That's a pretty mind-blowing thing.
Movies have gotten so over the top with this shit where we forget that it's like watching a fucking car transform into a robot. That would be the coolest thing that would ever happen to you. And
your heart would stop.
And all it would take is one.
You wouldn't need like 5 of them wackily trying to hide in your yard from your parents.
Right. And these people are horrifying. I mean, that's what I mean. I don't know who's watched The Boys. I know you have, Tom.
Oh yeah,
but it's sort of what The Boys is doing. It's long overdue, which is superheroes are terrifying.
Yeah, and I mean, we disagreed on it, but to a lesser degree, Brightburn last year.
I mean, I love the concept of Brightburn.
The concept is great, and I mean, they've essentially that's Homelander in The Boys.
Yeah.
So
it's the idea of like, what if there's a superhero, but they're not stable. They're the worst thing about a superhero is that there's still a person, so they could be anyone. And
and the idea specifically of like Superman being that
Superman
is like, oh no,
being a god that was still raised like all of us, and it's like, well, we're fucked up. Of course, the idea of Homelander is he's not raised like all of us. He was raised in. I don't want to spoil anything about Homelander.
Yeah. He's a maniac. That was the point.
But it's weird that like the X-Men series is so quaint now. Like looking back at X-Men, I like a lot of the X-Men, but it's not enough, because it's like the way the X-Men universe does it is it's just like, there's good mutants and there's bad mutants, and they're all good or bad around this one issue. And it's like, no, that's not how it would be, though.
That's not how. Yeah, they would be the same as people. You know, they would all be divided among the same lines that people are divided.
And
along.
I really appreciate films exploring this. The Invisible Man is another example, where it's like, what is a mad scientist in that? Oh, well, it could be an emotionally and physically abusive man with the ability to turn invisible. What a horrifying idea! And it's the realization of like, these people. They're dystopian figures.
Like the Invisible Man is sort of like, what if Tony Stark was a shitty boyfriend that wouldn't let you leave?
Right, exactly. And these people have there's no one to stop superheroes. I mean, the Avengers are terrifying to anybody who isn't the Avengers.
Yeah.
And so, like, this is sort of dealing with that idea just from a different perspective, which is that it's also terrifying to the people who don't know what's happening to them, to a kid who's born with this power and doesn't understand it, and doesn't understand why people are treating them differently.
Yeah, because the other thing he's doing, apart from keeping her isolated, is he's trying to suppress whatever power she might have, and he's not telling her about powers or that he and her mom had powers or anything like that. So it's like he's also doing that. I mean, it's I don't know. It's
also, you could argue that this is an allegory for
sure,
just growing up in general.
I was about to make that connection in my clumsy way, but that's the direction I was going. And as you can see, it is like a parent who's avoiding the sex talk, or like a parent who
doesn't want their black son to be shot by the cops when he's 11.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. That's a more literal one. Yeah,
it's the idea of a parent trying to tell their kid early that the world is sinister. And that the world isn't good, so a lot of the times, and they need to be ready for it way too early than they should be. It's a parent having to get rid of the innocence of their kid at an extremely early age, and like fighting that, but ultimately they can't deny it. You know?
Yeah.
That's a big part of this.
Yeah, and kind of the issue is he's not being straight with her about it.
And that's probably the most one-to-one, but it could also be like if, mental health issues with parents, or like poverty, or like, just growing up in a way that isn't considered by the mainstream world as normal.
Right.
And so it's watching it from the kid's point of view, and that kid getting angry at the world for it, and doing... go on.
I was just going to say, and angry at her parents, as her dad is in this movie is literally keeping her in a bubble. Exactly.
Yeah. And sort of going one of two ways with it is you either conform to the world and hide the thing. Or if you can't do that, because that's kind of the moment she has this choice to make, which is, I'm going to try to pretend to be a normal kid. I have all these lines recited, all these ways to, I like baseball. I like this. I have my sister and she snores. Like these fake lines. And,
the she snores was real, as we come to find out, because she's been mind stalking that little girl.
Not cool. Not cool, Chloe. But, so she wants that, like, normal fitting in world, and in this act of desperation tries to make it work with the mother and the family, and it ends in chaos. And so in her case, she makes the other choice, which is like, no, fuck them. They have to accept us. They're luckily in a position where they're powerful enough for that to be an option. So that works. That works out for them. But like, yeah, that's sort of the decision everybody has to make at a certain point with this stuff, which is, are you gonna try to go the easy route or the hard route, But sometimes there isn't even an easy route. I don't know. There's a lot here. It's a cool movie. You guys?
Yeah. It's a pretty sweet movie. I don't really have anything else to say about it.
Do you want to review the 1930s freaks real quick?
Yeah,
the part where the guy rolls the cigarette with his mouth is pretty impressive. You remember that? Because he has no arms and legs.
I've actually not seen it.
Okay. They use real sideshow performers in it, and it's weird. It's I mean, it's made in the 30s, so I'm going to go ahead and say it was a problematic film, but it's like only an hour long. And I've only watched it once, but I remember that it's got very weird, like, mixed messages about it. It's not really about how the sideshow performers are, like, bad people. It's, I believe, about someone exploiting them and them getting revenge. But I think it still doesn't paint them in the best light. But it's all real sideshow performers in it. So at least at the time, they were like, this is the movie we want to make. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can watch it or not.
We don't need to talk about it.
Yes, we do, Tom. We got to cover them both. There's 2 movies with this name. That's new policy. I'm going to clumsily try to review a movie that I watched 10 years ago.
I have never seen, but I will also clumsily try to contribute to this review.
Sure. Oh, geez. I shouldn't have done that. All right. Thanks. Hey, everybody.
Yeah, it's all right. Hey, you.
I want to thank Joshua Graves, our patron producer, who put this on their list. We are now taking it off the list. We have so many things we can watch on this list. I'm excited for picking the next one. It's good stuff. Maybe
there's some good stuff.
Maybe we'll watch Observe and Report. Who knows? That's the problem. Is like Observe and Report. I've seen already. I don't think it's bad, but there's so many other things on this list that I'm like, ooh. So, like we should watch Lockout, Tom.
Yeah, I think I'd rather watch Observe and Report than watch Lockout again.
Is Lockout a bad movie?
It's Guy Pearce is fun in it, but the rest of the movie is kind of blah.
This has been our review of Lockout. Folks, if you're interested, you can go to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. This is where Joshua did this from. We also have a exclusive podcast there, actually. Like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman and Fox Mulder is a Maniac. That's at our lowest tier. And then there's a $10 tier where you can watch movies with us every Friday. There's more tiers after that. You should check it out. It's fantastic. We're having a great time. We're having a lot of fun.
We also have a store. Oh, man, we have so much fun all the time. We also have a store at tpublic.com/store/gamefullyunemployed. You can check out t-shirts, masks, mugs, stickers, posters, all kinds of stuff. So do that.
Yeah, and
yeah,
I don't know, watch us.
Do that, you freak.
Oh, shit. They're going to blow up our fucking heads or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that scene where he screams at him. He's like, "Get away from my house, or I'll melt all your minds with my freak powers."
Okay, the part where he has to try to act like a human, for one, it's pretty fun. Yeah, because he puts on a blue button down and slicks his hair back,
and is wearing glasses.
Yeah. God, imagine being raised by Bruce Dern and Emile Hirsch.
I can't even. Well, you would turn into some sort of nightmare of a person, I'm sure.
Yeah, it would turn out exactly how it turns out in this film.
Yeah, with a blown up house and several dead cops.